Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling, welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back.
Ooh. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I am your host, Kyle, also known as the hardest part of the ring. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody is enjoying their January. Hope everybody had a nice New Year's. Hope everybody's MLK Day went swimmingly. What else happens in January? What else? January holidays. Let's get this podcast red hot right out the gate with a little Google ski of January holidays. What is your favorite January holiday? Apple Gifting Day. What the people are just making shit up. Wait, this is all on January. Oh, this is just like, oh, today's give somebody a cookie day. Like, fuck, shut the fuck up, mom. But anyways, what is today? As of recording this, today is... I'm not making these up. Maybe I'll even throw these on the screen. It is National Dress Up Your Pet Day. Fun fact, before we get into all the Ring of Honor. By the way, Ring of Honor, January 2004. We got another double shot episode for you guys today. It's going to be a fun time. We got a lot to get into, but first, let's talk about dressing up your pets. So me and the softest part of the ring, we have a whole wardrobe for our cats. Mind you, the cats hate clothes. I mean, they hate clothes like ISIS hates the United States. Like, they hate clothes like, okay, I got a couple dicey ones on deck, but I'm gonna keep them in the noggin. They just really don't like them. We put a shirt on them, they stiffen up like a board. I mean, they sell these clothes like fucking Charlotte Flair, just no energy. They just plop over, right? You hear him meowing in the background. He hears me talking about it. Let me go grab it. Oh, he's a big boy. Do you like your Hawaiian shirt, Dwayne? Tell everybody how much you like your Santa hat, huh? And now you're gonna clam up now that the microphone's in front of your face. The YouTube audience, I mean, they get a full dose of Dwayno right here. This big fat. Look at his belly. Look at his belly. He loves it. Ow. God. Anyways, it's also National Hot Pastrami Sandwich Day. Which, speaking of which, I got a nice pastrami for you. Huh? See, I was going for a penis reference there, but I don't even know if that makes sense. What does pastrami look like? Sorry, I'm like lollygagging to get into this. Like what does just a raw pastrami look like? Doesn't look that appetizing. It looks like it's gonna be brisket, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? Not a big cold cuts guy myself. Not a big Italian cold cuts guy. This might be a hot take. Huh? Hot take incoming. Unpopular opinion, semicolon, line break. Here's my opinion. Oh, fucking Twitter's a fucking dumpster fire. But anyways, let's get into some Ring of Honor, shall we? I guess we might as well talk about what the title of this podcast is, huh? Who's with me? 2004, making our debut on the Apron Bump in the year of 2004, the year of our Lord. Roughly a 20-year anniversary of these two shows. We got Battle Lines Are Drawn. Battle Lines Are Drawn. Doesn't sound drawn. D-R-A-W-N. Drawn. Why does that not sound right? My stupid Virginia accent. Drawn. Battle Lines Are Drawn. And The Last Stand are two shows that Daddy is going to be discussing today. We're going to be recapping these two shows. We'll kind of be jumping back and forth. We got some running threads that occur, in both shows. They kind of run from one show to the other. We got some standout matches that happen on these shows. We got some storyline hullabaloo shenanigans happening on these shows. Lots to get into. We got the pure title to talk about, which that has been formally announced here. Not only the title, but we got the tournament, the one-night tournament that's going to be happening at the second anniversary show, which is the next month. So the next Ring of Honor review that I do, we'll be covering that. But on the way there, we are building the pure division. We're establishing the rules of pure title matches. We're kind of fine-tuning what it means to be a pure wrestling match. Like, what's the difference between that and a regular match? So a lot of kinks kind of being worked out, a lot of seeds being planted. We got Joe, the Ring of Honor champion, continuing his feud with both the Briscoes as well as Jim Cornette, which is something. It is certainly something. Maybe the main feud occurring on these two shows. We got the Second City Saints battling with the Prophecy. So we got faction warfare going here. Basically, we got CM Punk's group versus Christopher Daniels' group clashing in a variety of different ways, and we'll get into that. But two of the most charismatic guys, two of the strongest characters by far, I think, in Ring of Honor as of this point here in 2004, right in the beginning here. So that'll be fun. We also got Homicide hanging around here. He's kind of in a limbo period. He might even be taking a break from Ring of Honor. So that's we got a lot. Again, there's more to talk about there, but he's got some pretty good matches. Probably the highlight matches of these two shows. And then of course we got all the ridiculous Scramble matches. We got Special K. We got the Carnage crew. All the characters you love and you love to hate. From Ring of Honor in the early stages of this company. We got a few debuts here as well. We got some returns. So a lot to talk about here. Just kind of laying the scene, setting the scene for January 2004. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of these shows, first, follow me, you asshole. Go to Apron Bump, at Apron Bump on all the social medias. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, QAnon, like all of those things. Hit me up. All of that will be in the description below. Also in the description, first I should also say the cards for both of these shows. You'll find these in the description as well if you want to kind of just take a gander, get a little taste of what we're going to be talking about today. But also there you'll find a link to all of my Ring of Honor reviews that I've done so far. I started from the very beginning. An era of honor begins roughly 2 years previous to the shows we're covering today. So we've covered 2 full years of Ring of Honor, building stages of this company that would go on to change the landscape of wrestling and is creating effects that we're still feeling today. As far as the style of wrestling that was kind of bred out of Ring of Honor, at least in America. So it's been a fun journey. It has not all been good, but by golly, it's all been entertaining in some way or another. So if you would like to relive this journey from the very beginning, go to apronbump.com, go to the episodes tab, go select Ring of Honor. or click the link in the description. I'll have that there for you as well. But that'll bring you to all of the Ring of Honor shows that I've covered thus far in chronological order. Always a good time. Go do that. Rate the podcast, review the podcast, subscribe, like, ring the bell, ring my balls, powder my speed bag, and let's just get right into it, huh? I think I've plugged enough. Let's talk about what do we talk about first here? Let's get into the pure wrestling division, huh? Let's talk about pure wrestling. And that may to you, to the untrained ear, sound just like a vague way of describing wrestling, but it is a specific division that we have here in Ring of Honor that we are just now establishing here in January of 2004. We got the first ever pure wrestling matches, which are specific rules that we'll get into. But this is something that is still around today. We still got a pure champion. I think as of recording, I believe Wheeler Yuta is the champion, and we still got the pure rules. We got the 3 rope break limits. So in a pure wrestling match, for just for anybody who's not aware, you get 3 rope breaks, and that's it. So if you use up your rope breaks, you grab the rope to exit a submission, to counter a submission or a pinfall or whatever. You can do that, but once you do it for the 3rd time, there's no longer any rope breaks. So you can be tangled up in the ropes, but somebody can still be strangling your balls and your scrot. You know what I'm saying? I think ball scrot might still be illegal, but you know what I mean. You can be in the ropes, you can be in a choke, Boston Crab, a 3-handled moss-covered family credenza. Like you can be in these ropes and you can still lose because you've exhausted your rope breaks. And here at the battle lines are drawn, which is night 1. By the way, battle lines are drawn occurred on January 10th, 2004, and the last stand occurred on January 29th, 2004. So you might hear me reference night 1, night 2. Night 1 is battle lines, night 2 is the last stand. But night 1, the first ever pure wrestling match, is Alex Shelley taking on Matt Stryker. Not that Matt Stryker, for any new listeners, Matt Stryker with a Y. This is. It is not the teacher. It is not Big Daddy V's manager. It is Matt Stryker with the Y. He has a unibrow. I guess that's his character. But he's got a lot of momentum here. The Field of Honor champion, the coveted Field of Honor champion, Matt Stryker. If you're not familiar with the Field of Honor, we talk about that in the previous episodes. Go give it a gander. But basically, it was a round robin tournament. He's the Continental Crown champion, huh? He was Eddie Kingston 20 years ago, Matt Stryker, and taking on Alex Shelley, which as of recording this episode, we just saw Alex Shelley lose the TNA World Championship. So he's a main fixture in the main event scene in TNA today. So we got 2 guys that are one guy that's still around. But Alex Shelley, Matt Stryker, pure wrestling, and we got a couple pure wrestling matches that we'll rattle them off here. I'll say this. Let's before we get into the matches themselves, let's talk pure wrestling. Pure wrestling matches. What do we think about them, gang? Really, the only rule is 3 rope breaks that we just talked about. I think today they've established, a 15-minute time limit as well. And I think that's the only other rule. I could be wrong. That is something that I could easily Google, but I choose not to. But I really think it's just 3 rope breaks. They're not in rounds, are they? Fuck, god damn it. I'm gonna look it up. What are the rules? ROH pure wrestling rules. Oh, they got a lot more rules now, actually. Shit on my dick. Well, this is actually pretty interesting because we're kind of following the iterative process of establishing these rules. So currently in 2024, here are the pure wrestling rules. Yeah, there's 10 rules. The first rule is the 3 rope breaks, which we talked about. Second rule is, it's kind of just it's kind of just an extension of that. After the 3 rope breaks are exhausted, submissions and pin attempts under the ropes or on the ropes are legal. Rule number 3 No closed fist punches to the face permitted. Isn't that just a regular? I don't know. Step 4. Rule 4. Open-handed slaps or chops to the face are permitted. Step 5. Punches to the rest of the body are allowed, excluding low blows. Rule number 6. The first use of a closed fist to the face receives a warning. Rule number 7. The second use of a closed fist to the face that's like a tongue twister. Closed fist to the face results in a disqualification. Rule number 8. The title can change hands via disqualification and countout. Rule number 9. Outside interference will result in automatic termination from the roster for the wrestler that interferes. That's a little brutal. Rule number 10. If a title match reaches a time limit without a winner being declared, the winner is decided by a panel of 3 judges. Okay, so that feels like 3 or 4 rules just spread out into 10. I'm looking at the Wikipedia here. I don't know if this is I don't know if there's a Pure Wrestling Bible somewhere that I should be reading, but so to sum up, 3 rope breaks, no closed fist punches to the face, I guess. No outside interference, and a 15-minute time limit that'll be decided by judges. So that's like 4 rules, really, that they just spread out. But all that to say, going back to 2004, which is where we're at here, there's only one rule, and that's the 3 rope breaks. So I guess we're going to figure that out as we go along here. But again, what I was trying to say is, what do we think about Pure Wrestling? Because I've had guests on in the past that are more familiar with the Pure Wrestling history than I am. Because, I've seen a lot of matches, recently, like since the reboot of Ring of Honor. I've always been a strong supporter of specific match types tied to certain championships. In NXT, I love the Heritage Cup concept. British round style. You got 6 rounds, 3 minutes each. Best 2 out of 3. Like they have their own set of rules for this particular title or trophy or whatever the hell. I kind of like that because I don't love the concept of like you have the world title and then you have like tiers below. Like you have the Intercontinental Championship, the US title. I understand what they're there for, right? It's a stepping stone. It's almost like a testing, like a test drive almost to see if you could become a world champion, to see if you could be the face of a company. We always try to establish it as the workhorse, quote unquote, title, but shouldn't every title be that? I don't know. But that being said, it's very vague, and it's like, why wouldn't you go for the world title? Like, why would you decide to go for the Intercontinental or the US title or the TV title or whatever the hell? Why would you go for that instead of the world title? Like, wouldn't you want to always strive to be the top guy? So there's always like a level of vagueness and kind of muddy waters there. But here with the Pure Wrestling and what I just talked about, the Heritage Cup, like this is a style of wrestling that you're trying to conquer. Like it's a style of wrestling that you're trying to establish yourself as the best in the industry at that style of wrestling. And that to me makes more sense, right? So I like Pure Wrestling and the Pure Wrestling title on paper, right? As far as like, I do like the 3 rope breaks. I think that's cool because, you get your rope breaks because Pure Wrestling, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how the definition of this is a little vague, but, you're good at the technical aspect of it. You're good at the grappling arts, the submissions, the countering, ring placement, all that stuff, right? You're a master at that. You might not have you're not there to electrify the crowd with your charisma, with your presence. You're there to, in kayfabe, to be the best wrestler. And I enjoy that. In 3 rope breaks, you can't just rely on grabbing the rope to get out of the submission. You have to really reach into your repertoire, and you have to really use your abilities and your creativity to escape these submission holds, what have you. And also on the other end, using it as a strategy to get your opponent to exhaust their rope breaks. Like there's a level of strategy to it that I enjoy. It's just another, I would not want every wrestling match on a card to be this, but I think it presents a fun novelty to incorporate within a card, if that makes any sense. Like if you've listened to me for a while, you'll know that I like wrestling to be a buffet. I love wrestling to be a variety show. If I sit down and watch a wrestling card, I want, a pure technical match. I want a high flying luchador match, a hardcore match, a soap opera type match, big high stakes, to big time title matches, but also some fun, maybe some comedic stuff in the middle. I want tag matches. I want women's matches. I want hoss fights. I want European style, Japanese style, like that. I love the variety aspect of wrestling. And I think a card that presents different styles, different flavors, different tastes, you put it all in a card, and that to me is how I enjoy wrestling the most. I don't want every match to be a pure wrestling title match. It would get draining after a while. And but I like it incorporated in the card, which is kind of what we got here. So all that to say is that currently I am a fan of pure wrestling. Will that change as I, move on through 04, 05, 06? We'll see. Subscribe and find out. Smash that like button. And like I said, we're building to a one-night tournament that will occur at the 2nd anniversary show next month. We got some qualifying matches. But in talking about like what pure wrestling is, listen to commentator Gabe Sapolsky describe to you what his definition of pure wrestling is. I'm not going to give my opinion on it. I'm just going to let it play for you. I'm going to let you form your own opinion, and then I will give mine. Let's hit play on this bad boy.
For this new pure wrestling division, I want to clarify, pure wrestling, it doesn't just mean technical wrestling. It doesn't just mean working an arm or working a leg. Pure wrestling means competition in its purest, at its purest. That is what pure wrestling is all about. Great athletic matches. It encompasses all styles of wrestling. It's just about having the most competitive athletic matches going today, and that's what Ring of Honor features.
Is that not just every wrestling match? Is that not just what you're trying to make Ring of Honor be? And he does this too. Like, we got Alex Shelley and Matt Stryker here in a pure wrestling rules match. But then we'll have like Homicide versus CM Punk or Homicide versus AJ Styles. We'll have like a 4-way survival match with a bunch of other, up and comers. And every match, I swear to God, every match on at least night 1, Gabe describes every match as a pure wrestling match. They're not all pure wrestling rules, but it's like, and when every match is pure wrestling, then no match is pure wrestling. Like, am I crazy? Like, what are we doing? It just bugged the shit out every match. So, oh, this is, by the way, guys, also a pure wrestling match. Like, is it? But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. While we're talking about production, I promise you I'm going to talk about this wrestling. I promise you I'm going to get to Alex Shelley and Matt Stryker eventually. We need to get the production shit out of the way, because that it's what you see, it's what you hear. So these were the first things that came to mind when I turned these shows on, right? Commentary, we talked about it. By the way, Chris Nelson replaced Ray Morrow. So Chris Nelson was this, I guess the color guy to Gabe, maybe the play-by-play, I don't know. But he's making his debut here as a commentator. He's tremendous. Chris Nelson, if you're not familiar, he's a former NWA tag team champion. So he's a former wrestler. Like, he knows what he's talking about. He has a great voice. He has that Chicago, hey, let me get this deep dish pizza kind of. That's a terrible Chicago accent. What do people from Chicago sound like? What do they say? I work with children. Yeah, that's what they say. But we got Chris Nelson here, who's a great commentator. He's kind of just thrown in there with Gabe's nonsense. You really hear how bad Gabe is when he's paired with Chris, who is just a voice for commentary. He knows what he's talking about. He knows how to, like, pace his sentences, you know what I mean?
Be joined by a new partner here in the announcing booth, former NWA Tag Team Champion from the Florida area, Chris Nelson.
I tell you what, Lovey, it's great to be here in Ring of Honor. I'm very happy to be here in one of the top federations in the world, Ring of Honor, and we've got some great action for you tonight, Lovey.
So, I don't know. This is just me. It's nitpicking. I'm worn down from Gabe's stupid Jerry Seinfeld voice yelling at me for 3 hours straight with no pauses. That's just me. I'm not a big fan of it. But the production of night one is very interesting because it's very reminiscent of like old school OVW and like the hard cam. I don't know if Ring of Honor's ever had like a hard cam before. Now that I'm thinking about it, like it's always got like the handheld cameras ringside, but it just felt very like when you see old clips of like John Cena and Randy Orton and Batista and OVW, you've seen like clips like in documentaries and stuff. Like that's how this whole show is shot with this hard cam. And I bring this up because there's also, the handheld cameras ringside, right? They switch back and forth. The settings are not the same. Like the white balance is off. So like the hard cam looks good. It looks how it should. But then it'll shift to the handheld cameras and it'll be dark as fuck. It'll be green almost. Like you can barely see. It's very green. I don't know. Is it the saturation, the hue? It's completely off, right? It is very distracting. It made me want to throw up a little at certain points in this show. Maybe I'll throw a clip up here on the YouTube, just kind of illustrate what I'm talking about here. But was not a big fan of that. Now, I should also say, I don't know if this was the OVW. I said it was very reminiscent of OVW. This show does occur in Ohio, so I don't know if this is actually OVW. Or I couldn't really figure it out Googling it. This may very well be the OVW arena, for all I know. I know Jim Cornette, who is the head of OVW at this point, is a part of Ring of Honor, so it's very possible. But I don't know. That was a fun little nugget. That's probably only fun to me. But let's talk about the wrestling for the love of fuck. Alex Shelley, Matt Stryker. We got the Field of Honor champion, Matt Stryker, taking on a relative newcomer, Alex Shelley. I'm going to tell you this. The crowd is horny for this match. Pure wrestling. You got the chain wrestling. Alex Shelley is the best, dude. I mean, the way he transitions, he does this like neck breaker, but like keeps control of the neck when he hits the mat, does like a gator roll and then flips up into a Muda lock. Matt Stryker's working the leg. They're like the crowd's reacting big for the rope breaks. So it was apparently very established to the crowd, to the live crowd, what the rules are. So whenever somebody makes a rope break, the crowd's like, oh, and they're like all counting along because this is the first one. This is the first ever pure wrestling match, which is fun, right? And I do, as far as the match itself, I love the storytelling element of wrestlers' like instincts taking over, right? Because you have 3 rope breaks to use, so you would think they would try to save them. But like I said, their wrestler instincts, they get into a hole. They're like, oh, the ropes are right here. I'm going to grab them. But then they realize right after they grab them that it's like, oh shit, that's one less rope break I can use for like a later down the match when I really need it. So both guys do that, right? They'll be in like a working hold. Like they're not in trouble, but they grab the ropes to let go, and then they're like, I love that psychology to it. But during the match, Matt Stryker works on the leg of Alex Shelley, which makes sense because Matt Stryker's finisher is the Stryker lock, which is like an Indian death lock type move that works on the leg. So that all pans out well for him because Alex Shelley goes to the top rope at some point and his leg just like crumples underneath him. So he like just falls and crotches himself on the top rope. His leg gives from all the work that's been done to it. Stryker locks him in a tree of woe in the corner, beats on the knee, locks in the Stryker lock. But Alex Shelley grabs the rope to exhaust his final rope break. And then, so he has no more rope breaks to use. So Matt Stryker puts the Stryker lock back on after he lets go, puts it back on. Alex Shelley is still in the ropes, but it doesn't matter because he can no longer use the rope break to break up the submission. So Alex Shelley ends up tapping, like all tangled up in the ropes. So Matt Stryker wins, makes use of the pure wrestling rules and the format that's been laid out. And I thought this was just a good introduction to the concept because you make use of the rope breaks and all the stuff I talked about, right? So it was a solid match. It's nothing that I'd be like, oh, like none of these pure matches are like something that I would be like, you need to go watch this right now. But they're all very solid matches. They're fun. Like I said, it's a novel concept, and Ring of Honor trying to establish themselves as a like an alternative. I think that's good. We also got Nigel McGuinness versus Cody Hawk. Cody Hawk, which is not a pure wrestling match, but Gabe Sapolsky tells us that it is also a pure match. So take that what you will. You might be thinking, Kyle, that's very confusing. I agree. Shout out Sting. It's an HWA heavyweight title match. So Nigel McGuinness, who we all know would go on to be a major fixture in Ring of Honor, is still very new here. I think this is like his third match in Ring of Honor. But he really only pops up when they're in Ohio, because I believe HWA is a Ohio-based independent promotion. So giving him some shine, as well as Cody Hawk. But man, it is so clear. I don't know if it's hindsight or what, but Nigel McGuinness is so fucking good, dude. I mean, the British wrestling style with, the wrist, like it's, you gotta just watch. I don't know how to articulate it with words, but just the way he like transitions from move to move, all like the wrist locks and the arm drags and just like the British style. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's very foreign to the United States wrestling audience as of this point. Because right now, companies like Progress Wrestling, Rev Pro, OTT, NXT UK, like we're all now exposed to that style, right? Even today, like on the main shows, Raw, SmackDown, AEW, you got a lot of British wrestling influence infiltrating America. But in 2004, it wasn't as big. I mean, you had your Regals and stuff like that, but it was not, you didn't have Nigel McGuinness's on WWE. I'll put it that way. Or WCW or whatever the hell, right? TNA even. So it was the crowd loved his flavor of chain wrestling. Like I said, they were into this style of wrestling from night one. So Nigel, that was just my main takeaway, is how smooth Nigel was at this point. Because he had a bit more of like he would go on to be just like a classic heel, kind of more strikes, I would say. His clothesline was his finisher. He had a submission also as his finisher, like the Tower of London, which was like a cutter out of the corner. But here he's just chain wrestling. He's doing a little bit of high flying too, which is fun. At one point, he gets his head busted open on the corner post because him and Cody Hawk are fighting on the outside, and they have like their hands linked together, but the ring post is like in between them. So they're like bashing each other's head into it. There's a famous spot where Nigel and Bryan Danielson do this later down the road. But Nigel just bashes his head against the corner post, gushing blood, because why wouldn't you be? And Cody Hawk takes advantage, hits a kneeling like a muscle buster, but just falls straight down on his knees. So it's like he crunches his neck. It looks very brutal. Like it looks very unsafe. When I was I trained wrestling for a few months, and a guy at my school, his finish was this move, and I'm so glad I never had to take it, because I don't know how you can take it and not fucking break your neck. But he did it to Nigel here, and then the finishing stretch of this match, you got Cody Hawk throws out an electric chair for a 2 count. Nigel, he's like I said, he's gushing blood, so he's trying to get all these roll-ups to try to just end the match. He hits this like Superman pin clutch type deal for a 2 count. Cody Hawk hits a pile driver, but Nigel grabs the ropes to break up the pin. Nigel again, just another European clutch with a head scissor. And eventually Nigel's able to win with just a roll through cradle type move. Gets the win kind of out of nowhere, but made sense with how dire his situation was. Just a lot of blood and just like these guys were showing out. They were here to get noticed by Ring of Honor, and Nigel McGuinness, at least, clearly got noticed. I don't know what Cody Hawk would go on to do. I don't know if he sticks around, but Nigel's here, man. Love me some Nigel McGuinness. It's just very interesting watching this with hindsight because we like I said, we all know Nigel would go on to he'd be a pure wrestling champion. He'd be the Ring of Honor world champion. He's like a Mount Rushmore guy in Ring of Honor, in my opinion. So, and I've never heard of Cody Hawk. So it's just interesting of watching this, like maybe there's a reason why I don't know who Cody Hawk is just based on this match, but that's some good stuff there. Keeping with the pure wrestling style matches here, we got another pure wrestling match. Chris Sabin versus Jimmy Jacobs. So Jimmy Jacobs is still doing the Berserker Bruiser Brody gimmick. He has the furry boots. He's doing the Huss thing. He's, I don't know. Just give me Age of the Fall, Jimmy Jacobs, man. I don't know. And then we got Chris Sabin, who at this point has become a big part of TNA, big part of the X Division. We got Hail Sabin chants in the crowd. So Chris Sabin's making a name for himself. And I would say Chris Sabin, this was a good month for Chris Sabin. I'll just say that. Had some good matches and got some good wins. So, because he's kind of been middling. He's made a few appearances on Ring of Honor, but I don't think he's really won much, if any. So he's kind of just been middling a little bit, but I think he made some strides to make a name for himself here. And I'll say this is a pure wrestling qualifier match to get into the tournament next month. I thought it was just a fun, innovative match. I thought you got Jimmy Jacobs. He does this like reverse pedigree deal where it's like, think of a pedigree, but the guy giving it is facing the other way. So it's like almost like an unprettier, but he like falls to his knees instead. I appreciate the innovation. Doesn't look that great, but he does do a slick like O'Connor roll into a camel clutch. So another guy that's very seamless with the chain wrestling is Jimmy Jacobs. Very underrated, I think. Sabin throwing out some crazy drop kicks, dude. I mean, the springboard drop kicks he does where he just levitates in the air. He's just so explosive with his feet. Just really fun to watch. To this day, he is, man. So good. At some point, Jimmy Jacobs comes off the second rope, but Sabin catches him in midair in a suplex position, drops him with a brain buster, only gets a 2 count. Jimmy Jacobs fights back, goes for a back senton off the top rope, but Sabin gets his knees up and Jacobs lands like all back, dude. Like there was no feet there to brace his fall. You know what I mean? Like you do a back senton, you might land on your feet first to like brace the impact, but it is just all back on Sabin's knees. Looked brutal. Sabin hits him with a dragon suplex and then is able to hit a second rope cradle shock to get the win. So a fireman's carry slam of sorts, if you're not familiar with the cradle shock. Gnarly looking spot there in the finish. And like it's just a fun match, which is all you really ask for. By the way, I don't remember if I said this is a pure wrestling rules match. It's not a pure wrestling rules match, but I wrote down in my notes, this is a pure match because Gabe told me it was, but it was not a pure wrestling match. But just a fun match there. And, you know, moving on to night 2, kind of in this like pure wrestling realm that we're talking about right now. We're talking about Jimmy Jacobs. He had another match at night 2 against Alex Shelley. So both guys making another appearance here. Alex Shelley lost on night 1, and so did Jimmy Jacobs. So both guys are looking for their first win of the month. Honestly, one of the better matches of this month, weirdly, was Alex Shelley versus Jimmy Jacobs. I say weirdly because as of this point, like both guys are relative unknowns. Both guys have only appeared a few times, but they got the crowd, man. This is a really fun match. Honestly, they did a lot of things that they did in night 1. Like I was talking, Alex Shelley did that neck breaker into the Muda lock. He got Jacobs doing like the back sentons off the top rope. So there was a lot of things that were kind of duplicative of night 1, but they threw in some new stuff here. Jimmy Jacobs, his character, man, I don't know. He's a Bruiser Brody-esque is all I can say, but he's just like a little guy. He's bashing his own head into the top turnbuckle. I don't know. This match is a lot of Alex Shelley just kicking the shit out of Jimmy Jacobs. Now that I'm really thinking of it, I mean, he's countering all of Jacobs' moves. Like Jacobs goes for a plancha over the top rope to the floor, but Shelley just like drops to a knee, and Jacobs lands gut first on Shelley's knee to the outside, which looked brutal. But again, Jacobs goes for this back senton off the top rope. Again, Shelley counters with the knees, and then Shelley hits it's like a Blade Runner Sister Abigail type move. I think he calls it the shell shock. Hits that onto Jacobs, locks in the Gargano escape, and gets the tap out. So Alex Shelley gets the win, which I think he calls the Border City. I don't know. I'm just talking in terms of moves that I know and that I think my listeners will know. He hits a Sister Abigail into a Gargano escape. Jacobs taps out. Alex Shelley wins. Really, really fun finish. Really good match. I think they both are like Michigan guys. I think they like drive together. So they clearly have some good chemistry. So that really translated well into this match. The last pure match we'll talk about, I guess, is the last pure match that happened. This is actually a pure wrestling rules match and is a qualifier for the tournament next month. We got John Walters versus Chad Collier. So we've seen both these guys. John Walters is a guy that's gained a bit of momentum in the past few months. He had a brutal street fight with Xavier at Final Battle. The entire feud with Xavier was really good. Chad Collier is a guy who has not popped up in a while, but he's had matches with Matt Stryker, with Bryan Danielson. Just if you're not familiar with Chad Collier, think Dean Malenko on steroids. And when I say on steroids, I'm not talking like, oh, he's just a better version of Dean Malenko. No, like he's like literal like injections, like Tren, like horse tranquilizer. Like put that into Dean Malenko, blow him up. That's Chad Collier. But again, very similar to the first pure wrestling rules match. Both guys are kind of just starting to kind of get ingratiated with the concept. Their instincts are leading to them wasting rope breaks when they don't need them. Both wrestlers are doing that, so I like the storytelling there. Chad Collier's move is the cloverleaf, so he keeps trying to go for that. Walters grabs the ropes though to escape it because he knows how deadly of a move it is, so that he needs a rope break. He needs to exhaust the rope break to break it up. Very chain wrestling heavy in the beginning, but it kind of heats up towards the end. Walters hits a backpack stunner onto Collier. Collier follows up with a German suplex. Goes for the cloverleaf, but Walters counters right into the sharpshooter, like from the ground, which looked pretty sick. But again, Collier gets the ropes because he knows this is his like most deadly weapon. So it makes sense for him to exhaust a rope break here. Walters hits a Hurricane DDT for a 2 count, locks in the sharpshooter. Collier fights out of it. Back and forth. We got blocks. We got reversals. Ultimately, Collier has to use his final rope break to break up a sharpshooter again. But again, very similar to the Alex Shelley Matt Stryker match. John Walters lets go of the sharpshooter while he's on the ropes and then locks it back in because now he has no more rope breaks. Locks in. It's like almost like a tarantula type move. Shout out to Jiri. It's like a Boston crab in the ropes, but he locks this in. Looks brutal. But Collier has to tap out because he has no more rope breaks, and you can't really. How do you fucking even counter this? You're like all tied up in the ropes. So good psychology, good strategy from Walters here. It makes sense. And again, a good match. Lots of fire to this match. I enjoyed it, and just another good like giving the audience a taste of this match concept and the strategies that the wrestlers can use within it. So again, just this month I thought was a good introduction to the pure wrestling style, or the match type, I guess. And they'll go on to add more rules here, but I thought it was a good start. It's basically my too long didn't read bullet point here. Pure wrestling, I like it. Good start, but we're going to build onto it. That's basically where we're at here. And again, we're going to crown the first champion next month. So stay tuned for that. So we got because they list off people that are going to be in the tournament. Let's see if I can find it here. I wrote it somewhere, cocksucker. So in the tournament, we're going to have Matt Stryker, John Walters, AJ Styles, Doug Williams, Chris Sabin, CM Punk, Jimmy Rave, Josh Daniels. It's an 8-man tournament, a 1-night tournament that'll occur at the 2nd anniversary show. So lots to look forward to in terms of that. Hey, you want to talk about some people murdering each other? Let's get all this chain wrestling hammerlock nonsense out of the way so we can talk about Samoa Joe sodomizing Jim Cornette. Huh? How's that for a transition, huh? Let's talk about Samoa Joe. Let's talk about Joey Samoa, the Ring of Honor World Champion, shall we? He's continuing his feud with the Briscoes this month. I should first mention, so both shows, the introduction, there's promos and stuff in the intro to kind of open up the shows. We get 2 iterations of Samoa Joe's new segment, Samoa Joe's Ring, which debuted at Final Battle, the last show, where he was just beating up on a jobber, choking him out. And I thought this is just like a one-off silly thing that he did, but apparently it's a running thing he does, which I am all for. Night 1, he's like, let me show you how to do an abdominal stretch. And he just rips this guy's head off. He's just beating up jobbers as he's cutting a promo on whatever he's going to do on the show, which is phenomenal. Maybe I'll throw a clip up here. Listen to Samoa Joe. If you're just listening, just know that he's brutally stretching some wrestler as he's talking. And Bryan Danielson even gets in on the fun a little bit as well.
See, what you want to do is get your opponent down, put the leg in, and you want to stretch out through here. This is very damaging. Often sucks away the wind.
Wait. Hey, don't listen to him. There's a much more effective way to do this hold. Okay, when you've got the abdominal stretch here, you have here, and then reach all the way around the neck. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
Do you feel where that stretches?
Yeah.
And then you pull up on the head there, and it's actually a much more effective version of what Joe's got over there. So.
Yeah, but the only reason you want to do that is that it makes it so hard to transition into takedown with your again. And of course, once you got a headlock takedown, any good man knows you want to figure 4 and lock that arm.
Do you know what? He's still doing that. You can still do that a better way. But you can still come here, go here, and instead of bringing it back here, if you bring it under the arm there and then pull up on the head, you've actually got a much tighter hold there.
Yeah, but there's a big problem with that hold, you see. You still have that arm open, he can still be striking at you. So let's say he starts to bring it. What you want to do is you want to switch to a back wrist at the same time.
You know what? You can still hit the back wrist lock here, but as you do it, you can pull the head up and you can hit him there. You see?
You know what? I'll tell you what. It's obvious you have a problem with me. But let's get one thing straight. If you can do half of what you do out here, what your mouth says you can do tonight, well, I guess we'll be Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions.
So that was night 1. Night 2, he does a very similar thing, but he's showing what he did to Jim Cornette a few months ago. Because if you remember, little recap ski, little apron bump context. Jim Cornette came into Ring of Honor, aligned himself with Samoa Joe. Eventually, turned on Samoa Joe, hitting him with a racket, aligning with the Briscoes, because Jim Cornette didn't want to just align himself with a guy that was already champion. He wanted to make a champion. So he aligned himself with the Briscoes, who at the time were not the tag team champions. Lo and behold, Jay, Mark, they end up winning the tag team championships alongside Jim Cornette. And we're going to see a few defenses of those tag team titles on these shows.
I put you out. I stretched you so bad. Hell, you couldn't even find the building in Ohio. Or maybe you were afraid to find it. You know, a lot of people would ask themselves, what type of thing could Samoa Joe do to a person to make him not want to show up for a show? Well, you know, it's pretty simple. I could have hit him. I could have punched him. I could have knocked him out, but that's too easy. He wouldn't be able to felt the pain. Or I could have done something like this. See? You see Jim Cornette? This look familiar with you? This look familiar to you, Jim Cornette? This is what I did to you. This is what I did to you. And tonight.
And but Jim Cornette. Is Jim Cornette the greatest manager of all time? I'm inclined to say yes. He is so good. He has his emotion and the way that the believability that he really cares about his clients, you know, for lack of a better word, is just so good. He builds up the Briscoes so well. I mean, just listen to this.
Who else in the Ring of Honor do I need to get even with? Because first of all, there was the prophecy, the fallen angel, Christopher Daniels. He who has been cast out from the kingdom shall suffer the fires and torment and anguish of eternal damnation forever and ever until the end of time, so saith the Lord. Doesn't sound like a guy I want to hang out with. And I got even with the prophecy. And now Samoa Joe. You left me to lay in a hospital bed in New Jersey. And I'm not going to take that. Me, Jim Cornette, an icon in this profession, is not going to take that from a guy that's one generation removed from eating raw fish with his hands and taking a dump behind a tree. So Samoa Joe, tonight, you and Jerry Lynn are going to feel the brunt of the racket and the Briscoes, the World Tag Team Champions. And then, Samoa, I promise you, by the end of that match, you're going to have a new challenger for your title because one of the Briscoe brothers is going to beat you, and then that's going to earn him a shot at the world title, so one of the Briscoes is going to be a double champion. And then, boys, who else is on the horizon? What other tag teams in Ring of Honor can give you guys a run? Give me some names.
Backseat Boys.
All they can do is rip off the Midnight Express music. They ought to be sued for copyright infringement.
How about the Carnage crew?
Oh, come on. A couple of Al Bundy shoe salesman wannabes. And that'll look like Christine Applegate. Then I'd be interested. Give me somebody.
Second City Saints?
Nah, holier than thou preachers ain't got time for them because you need to be dirty in this business. The point of the fact of the matter is, Ring of Honor, you're going to have to get some tag team competition for these men because they're establishing a dynasty in this sport. And nobody is going to take these belts and nobody is going to stop Jim Cornette. That's a promise, and my word is good.
It's just, it was, because the Briscoes would go on to be one of, if not the best tag team of all time. Point blank period. Like, that's just the facts, right? And I think a lot of it stems because the Briscoes were good, right? I mean, the first year or two, the Briscoes I think had the best matches in general. They carried Ring of Honor for those first few years. But as a tag team, as like a tag team champion tag team, Cornette, I mean, he got the ball rolling, if nothing else. Maybe he didn't give the Briscoes all of the ability because they already had it. But he was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was a big, thick, racket-shaped straw that he gave them. So shout out Jim Cornette. Shout out Corny. But like I said, Joe, Briscoes, where are we at here? So we've seen the basic story here. Because we got Joe, who's the world champion, the Briscoes, who are the tag team champions. The Briscoes, each Briscoe has tried to take the world title from Samoa Joe, and they both have failed, right? Joe beat Jay a few months ago, and Joe beat Mark, I believe it was our final battle, to defend his world title. So he's beaten both of them in singles matches. But here's the clinker. When Joe tries to challenge for the tag team titles, because he's partnered with AJ Styles. This month, he's going to be partnering with Bryan Danielson. He's going to be partnering with Jerry Lynn. He's trying to find all these partners for Joe to win the tag team titles and become a double champion. But Joe is unsuccessful every time. He even got pinned by Mark Briscoe a few months ago. So he obviously has a vendetta against them. He doesn't want to be pinned as the world champion. But you kind of have this stalemate that neither side can take the title off the other side. So it's a fun like power struggle here. And night one, we got the Briscoes defending the tag team titles against Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe. Now, I'm going to say this. Both matches. So here, I'll lay it out like this, right? I think this is the best way to go about it. Night one is what I just described, right? Briscoes versus Danielson and Joe. Night two is the Briscoes defending again against Samoa Joe and Jerry Lynn, which seems like a major downgrade to me, but I digress. Fuck Jerry Lynn. He should not have beaten Nigel, but we're not going to get into a fuck Jerry Lynn thing, but fuck Jerry Lynn. Both matches are very similar in that they start out hot, right? You know, Joe and Danielson or Joe and Lynn. Like that side starts out hot from the very beginning. They get all their major moves, not all their major moves in, but the crowd gets hot. They got a lot of momentum, and then the Briscoes will channel that Jim Cornette energy and use like eye rakes or low blows, or the partner on the apron will, you know, knee the guy in the back to get advantage. They'll use shady tactics to get the advantage, and then they beat on whoever Joe's partner is. So like night one, they beat on Brian for a long time. And then Joe gets the hot tag and he's throwing out the Uranagis and the STFs. He's like talking shit to the Briscoes when he has them in submissions. He's throwing them all over the place. Lariats, leg kicks, throwing them into the barricade. Almost not mirror images, but very similar kind of structures to these matches on both nights. Whereas night two, they beat on Jerry Lynn for a while, and then Joe gets the hot tag, et cetera, right? Night one, the Bryan Danielson match. Bryan hits a big back suplex off the top rope onto Mark, but Jay is able to take advantage of this impact on Bryan, hits the Jay Driller on Bryan Danielson to pin Danielson, and the Briscoes retain on night one. Night two, Joe gets the hot tag, you know, tries to do the Olay kicks on Jay, but they've learned from the previous night, and Mark cuts off the Olay kicks with a plancha to the outside. One element I should also note, and I think it's pretty important, Jim Cornette was not there on night one, but he was there night two. So night two, Cornette actually gets in the ring at some point as Joe is about to put the finishing touches on, hits Joe with the racket, or goes to hit him with the racket, but Joe blocks it, grabs the racket, hits Cornette with a brutal forearm, which is hilarious. That the way Cornette sells is better than any manager that's ever existed. Knocks out Cornette, but Mark grabs the racket, hits Joe with it, and gets the quick pin. Like he hits Joe in the back. Kind of a weak fit. The racket never feels like a brutal. You know what I mean? It always feels like like the cover of a racket. You know what I mean? Because that's what it is, right? It's not like an actual racket. It's the cover, which you would assume that the actual racket is inside of it, but it sounds like it's not in there. It's just like a very pop. So Jay hits him with the racket, pins Joe, and gets the win. So Jay Briscoe now has pinned Samoa Joe, even though Joe kicked out at literally like 3.1. Jay gets the win here. Just kind of a shitty, dusty finish, but all due to Jim Cornette. Joe, of course, is pissed because once again, he was unable to become a double champion. He's also pissed because he took another loss as the world champion and goes on to challenge Jay Briscoe to a steel cage match for the world title, which is a match that I've never seen, but I've seen clips from, and I am excited to get to that match. I believe that's a very legendary match, so I'm excited for that. But long story short, Joe loses twice this month in tag matches, gets pinned once, and Cornette is dead, I guess. So Briscoes move on. They're established, and the Briscoes further established themselves as the top tag team. So I thought the stuff was good, man. Briscoes and Joe, again, these are two entities that have carried Ring of Honor in these first 2 years. Because there's been a lot of shit. Let's call a spade a spade. There's been a lot of bullshit in these first 2 years. But anything with the Briscoes is worth watching. Anything with Joe is worth watching. Those are the two main staples. You also got your like AJ Styles, Bryan Danielson, those guys, right? But I think Joe and Briscoes are the two top guys. And it's cool to see them. Part of me is like, maybe you can spread this throughout the show and have the Briscoes like actually to, like have a feud with a tag team. But the content has been good, so I can't complain too much. So cage match on the way, but Joe is pissed. Joe is pissed. A little bit more on Joe and what he's going to be doing on the second anniversary show later, but that's where we're at. While we're Speaking of bullshit, let's talk about some of that horse manure, huh? Let's talk. It's not all bad. There's some good stuff here, but we got scrambles. We got scrambles. We got mayhem. We got survival. What's the difference? Doesn't seem like there is. We got. I'll lay this out up front, right? We got on night 1, we got a 4-way survival and also an 8-man scramble. But night 2, we got a 6-man mayhem. And night 2, also a no DQ 3-way scramble. And I thought all scrambles were no DQ, but apparently the night 1 scramble is not. I mean, it's here's Ring of Honor, right? Let's all take a step back and remember what we're talking about, right? Yes, we got some major stars being built here in Ring of Honor. Yes, we got the style of wrestling really being kind of architected, being established here in these early stages in the early to mid 2000s. But you also got a lot of just indie, just a lot of baggy shorts, a lot of 450s, lots of bandanas, lots of Limp Bizkit entrance music. You got a lot of that stuff, right? And let's get into some of it, right? Let's start off with night 1. 4-corner survival. So we got the names here, man. I'm just gonna say these names. I think that's the content in itself, right? First of all, we got Jimmy Rave here, who we've seen before, right? I don't think he's gotten a win yet. We got Jimmy Rave versus Todd Sexton versus Caprice Coleman versus Rainman. Rainman. Yep. Like the movie. Let's see. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna assume that my listeners are not familiar with Todd Sexton. Todd Sexton, visually picture a younger version of Nick Gage. That's kind of what we got here. Caprice Coleman, current Ring of Honor commentator, which is fun to see him in his early days in wrestling. Was pretty solid. I don't know if he's a former boxer. He has some boxing offense that he tries to incorporate that I don't think looks great. Then Rainman coming out here in an orange jumpsuit. So that's what we're doing. Kind of like early days Homicide, Boogaloo. You guys remember that? The Natural Born Killers, huh? Looks like he's the third guy in this faction. And then Jimmy Rave, of course, future member of the Embassy. Big part of Ring of Honor is Jimmy Rave here. So, what a cast of characters is what I'll say here. And I'll say this, man. By the way, Gabe Sapolsky, if you're keeping track at home, this is also a pure wrestling match, according to him. But I'll say this, man. In a lot of these like multi-man, scrambly, survival, just clusterfuck type matches, almost all of them have a spot where every guy is in a submission at once. Like in this one, like you got Todd has a figure 4 on Caprice, but then Rainman locks in the camel clutch, but then Jimmy Rave comes in, locks a Muda lock, so they're like all in a submission, all tied together at once, which is fun, but it's like in every one of these matches. I think I'm not even gonna try to be like, oh, here's the story of this match. Like, let's just list off some moves that happen. I need like a fucking jingle. This needs to be like a segment. What moves happened in this match? We got Todd Sexton going for a suicide dive, lands on his head, almost makes the move a literal description of what it was. Rainman with the flipping poncho over the top rope. Caprice Coleman with a springboard to the outside. Got super high on that one. And look, the ending stretch, it's always like us in this match, we're relative unknowns. We're trying to make a name for ourselves. Let's show the audience our coolest moves. So they all take turns. Sexton hits a super kick to Jimmy Rave. Caprice Coleman does a TKO. So you guys are familiar with the TKO. It's like a fireman's carry into a cutter. But Caprice does it where he like falls on his own face. Again, like I appreciate the innovation, but let's go back to the drawing board with this one. Rainman hits a big sky high on the Jimmy Rave. Rainman hits a big sky high onto Caprice Coleman. Jimmy Rave hits a pretty sick looking backbreaker into an STO onto Rainman. Sexton with a rope hung DDT onto Rave. Rainman hits an atomic Bubba Bomb. Is how so like the Bubba Bomb full Nelson slam onto Sexton. Caprice hits a crazy looking Dominator into a pile driver type move. A really dangerous looking fucking, I think it's a Gonzo. Does Brody King do this? I believe he does. It's like a sick looking pile driver on the Rainman. But ultimately, Jimmy Rave counters a roll up from Todd Sexton and hits the Shining Wizard onto Big Sex for the win. So Jimmy Rave gets the win, finally gets a win in Ring of Honor, and goes backstage, finds his mentor, AJ Styles. Because AJ has been just berating Jimmy Rave for the past few months. Every time Jimmy Rave loses, AJ is like, Jimmy, why didn't you attack the neck, Jimmy? Huh? You gotta go in for the kill, Jimmy. Come on, attack the leg, break his ankle, rip his bowels out, take his bones out of his skin. Like the things that you say to your mentor, right? Or mentee. But AJ sees that Jimmy Rave finally won. And AJ's like, hey. He's like, you finally did it. Now you're ready. And Jimmy Rave's like, for what? And AJ's like, for me. So I guess we're getting Jimmy Rave versus AJ Styles finally. I don't know if that occurs on because they're both in the pure title tournament. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a tournament match or what. But we got Jimmy Rave and AJ Styles upcoming. So that's something. Feels like we've been building that for a while. But sticking to night one, we got another scrambly type of match. We got an 8-man scramble. We got the Carnage crew and the Ring Crew Express. So the crew. DeVito, Loke, Dunn, Marcos versus Special K, represented by Dixie, Hydro, Slim J, and Joey Matthews. So we got what was his WWE name? Joey Mercury and Jay Lethal representing Special K here. The backstory here, Carnage crew, DeVito specifically. DeVito has a daughter who has started listening to techno music and has started to do X or E, one of those drugs I guess his daughter is doing. He's hanging out with a bunch of these she's going to raves, everybody. Not Jimmy Rave, like techno raves. And DeVito is very pissed because that's not the values he wants to instill in his daughter. He's pissed. And Carnage crew cannot beat Special K. No matter what, it's someone interferes, some shenanigans happen, and Special K always comes out on top when they're facing the Carnage crew. So that's basically the main story we got here. The match, I mean, look, it's a scramble match. What moves happened? We got Slim J does an upside down moonlight drive. So if you're familiar with John Morrison's spinning neckbreaker moonlight drive, think of that, but like if Morrison did a backflip instead of a front flip. You might be trying to visualize this and being like, hardest part of the ring, that doesn't make a lot of sense. You're right. You're absolutely right. There's double teams all over the place. Special K doing their dives to the outside. Carnage crew, Carnage, Plex, double teams. They do their power bomb into a neck breaker that looks pretty sweet. DeVito gets busted open at some point, gets a drop toe hold into a chair. The match is what it is. Honestly, you've seen one, you've seen them all. I feel like I've seen like some iteration of this match like 10 times. It's fine, but like the real story here, first of all, the commentary is fucking on one in this match, dude. I'm just gonna like splice in a clip here of the commentary. Just note that Special K has a couple ladies ringside. Just note that Special K has Becky Bayless ringside, otherwise known as quote unquote that slut Becky, which it's just so like They need like a thesaurus or something because they just refer to her in the same words every time. I'm just gonna throw this out there. And also, Chris Nelson, the new commentator, just gets thrown into this nonsense and he's trying to like play along, but I don't know. You tell me if it felt organic or not.
Three corners somewhere. That's why we haven't seen him.
Well, you know, a little too much Raven will do that to you. Maybe we need to get him a bottle of water.
You also see Becky on the outside in the corner of Special K.
I like Becky.
Well, that's Daddy's little girl. If you talk to her, she'll probably do you. That's the kind of girl she is.
That's why I like Becky.
And now there's DeVito leveling Slim J with a punch.
It's really hard to find people that'll do me.
And now he's getting whipped into the ropes. I'm not going to touch that one.
Neither will they. Big high backdrop by DeVito.
Their happy lifestyle, the long hours they work, their nagging, disappointing family. They get out that aggression in the ring against Special K.
I'm glad they're beating up these rich kids rather than beating up their wives and family.
Dixie hawked into the steel. And here's that idiot Mellow. You're right about this kid. He is a class dork.
What I guess he didn't take his pill for dorkalism this morning. Guys back there in the back.
They're all stoned. And wow, did you see how high he got on that?
He got higher than he could on X.
Hello, fellow kids. This is the energy that they're bringing. Hello, fellow kids. But the real story here, all of this to say, the real story here, we got a major debut here. The monster Abyss walks out to align with Special K. So Abyss comes out with a couple other ladies who are described, commentaries like, who are those sluts with them? Like, God, can we stop? Can we? I'm not even mad that they're calling them sluts. It's just like, be a little more creative with it. Be a little more seamless, maybe. Like, I don't know. Use another word. Horror, either. I don't know. Abyss comes out, gives the shock treatment to Loke, and Dixie pins him for the win. So Special K has a new enforcer in Abyss, which is not... I would have never predicted this. I knew Abyss came into Ring of Honor at some point. I did not know he was a member of Special K. I guess Abyss is a Rave kid as well. Huh? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? You got Abyss, the most hilarious part of this all, right? And it's all hilarious, by the way. Abyss continues the ass beating after the match while all of this techno music is playing. So Abyss is doing his Abyss thing, but with a techno music bed underneath it. Like, just YouTube, watch it. But if you're listening, listen to this and just know that Abyss is just kicking the shit out of people with this in the background. So that's a thing. That's a thing. So Abyss is here, which is hilarious and awesome. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Big Special K guy. Well-known Special K guy here. And I'm pointing to me. I'm pointing to me right here. I just noticed on the YouTube, I'm like pumping my fist in front of my mouth, and it does not look like I'm pointing to me. But anyways. So that's that. Let's just rattle off the rest of these Scramble bullshit matches. We got 6-man mayhem on night 2. We got Hydro, otherwise known as Jay Lethal, versus Chris Sabin, versus Sanjay Dutt, versus Caprice Coleman, versus Jack Evans, versus Slick Wagner Brown. So, and apparently a top 5 ranking is at stake in this match, which Gabe is very adamant that just being in the top 5 rankings is prestigious in and of itself. I mean, you're known worldwide for being in the top 5 rankings of Ring of Honor, apparently, so that's fun. But that brings us to everybody's favorite segment. What moves happened in this match? We got Slick Wagner Brown with a razor's edge into a face buster. Jay Lethal hits a paradigm shift on the Caprice Coleman. You got Sanjay Dutt doing a Hindu press. Caprice Coleman tries to do this like Muhammad Ali boxing combo. It just looks very bad. I mean, his hands aren't up. It's like John Moxley punches he's throwing. Leaves a lot to be desired, but Jack Evans, of course, is fucking insane. He does this springboard to the outside. I swear he did 10 twists in the air as he was up there, but that's his deal. But ultimately, Chris Sabin he hits his cradle shock onto Hydro, I believe. But he sets it, Sabin goes for the power bomb, but then just over rotates him so that he's on his shoulders and then hits the cradle shock, which looked very slick. And Sabin gets the win. So Sabin won on night 1. And then he also gets a win in the 6-man match, and I guess is in the top 5 rankings. So big win for Sabin. Like I said, he's really establishing himself this month and is going to be a player, I would assume, here in Ring of Honor. So probably capitalizing on the momentum of him in TNA. I mean, he got a lot of TNA in this match. You got Sanjay Dutt, Jay Lethal, who I don't think is there yet, but he will be. So good stuff, man. Good stuff, I guess, for a scramble match. And then also last one, night 2, no disqualification, 3-way scramble match. The Carnage crew, represented by Justin Credible and Loke, versus the Backseat Boys, team of Johnny Cashmere and Trent Acid, versus Special K, team of Dixie and Izzy. So we're again just furthering the story of the Carnage crew not being able to beat Special K. I mean, the match gets underway right out of the gate. Special K comes out for their entrance. Carnage crew with a Pearl Harbor job in the aisleway. Backseat Boys right behind them. You got the Backseat Boys and the Carnage crew like double team on Special K. They take them all out. Everybody on the outside. Commentary is very mad about the sluts again. They're brawling all around the ring. I mean, you've seen one. Again, this is another match I feel like I've just seen like 20 times over the course of these 2 years. Just Incredible hits a second rope tombstone on the Dixie, but then the Backseat Boys come through the back door, hit the T gimmick onto Loke, take out Just Incredible, and the Backseat Boys kind of pick the bones here and get the win. Which is funny because, like I said, the Backseats and the Carnage crew were working together right up until the end. So the Backseat Boys kind of fucked them over. So again, Carnage crew cannot beat these stupid kids, which is a fun little sub story here happening in Ring of Honor. But yeah, it was what it was, I suppose. Let's talk about Homicide for a second, shall we? Homicide, Notorious 187. So he's coming off, I guess his feud with Steve Corino's over, I would assume. I'm not sure if it actually is or not. They had that barbed wire match and whatnot. Homicide did beat Samoa Joe a few months ago, but it seems like we're trying to forget that happened. So Homicide's kind of like in a limbo period. Like he's a big star in Ring of Honor, but he doesn't really have a solid story going on at the moment. But on both nights, he has marquee matches. Night 1, we got AJ Styles versus Homicide, who are 2 of the MVPs of 2003, I would say. So it's really cool seeing these guys face off against each other. There's one point in the match where Homicide does his classic tope con hilo through the middle ropes, goes sailing into the crowd, and the ref like Homicide's like knocked out seemingly. The ref calls for the medics. The crowd gets really quiet. Medical team's looking at Homicide. Homicide's like, no, I want to keep going. So I'm not sure like to what extent this was a work or what, but the match continues. They get back in the ring. Homicide goes for a cop kill on AJ. AJ counters it, but Homicide hits him with a low blow out of desperation, hits him with a pile driver, and gets a 2 count off of that. Just a really fun back and forth match here. You got like AJ will hit his Pele kick. Homicide stumbles, hits a running drop kick. Ultimately, though, Homicide goes for a sunset flip pin onto AJ, but AJ rolls through, deadlifts him up, Styles clash. 1, 2, 3. So AJ Styles gets the win here, and AJ Styles has been a top guy in this company so far, and it seems like they're going to continue with him. I mean, they see the talent that this dude has to say. So, again, like not a ton of story here, just a really fun match of two of the MVPs of Ring of Honor so far. But night 2, we got Homicide taking on CM Punk. So trying to get Homicide wants to get a win this month, doesn't want to take 2 L's. But so we got CM Punk versus Homicide, right? CM Punk is maybe the best character going in Ring of Honor at this point. The Second City Saints. He's got Colt Cabana with him. He's got Ace Steel. And he's got Tracy Brooks, who is his, I believe is his girlfriend at the time. I don't know what the opposite of a fetish is, but whatever that is it like an ick? Is that what the kids are saying? An ick? I can't stand schoolgirl outfits. I hate the pigtails, the plaid skirt, the white, knee-high, whatever the hell's right. It is so fucking cringe, dude. And Tracy Brooks comes out here. By the way, look, Tracy's an attractive woman, right? I'm not going to sit here and say Tracy Brooks is not attractive. She's always looked 45 years old. Like, always. And her coming out in the schoolgirl getup for no reason. Like, it doesn't fit in with the Second City Saints gimmick. I don't know why it makes me so mad. It's probably unwarranted, right? So, I mean, like, you have the Second City Saints, they're all serious. They got the AFI music coming out. They're throwing up the X's, and you just got Tracy Brooks twirling her hair in the background. Get the fuck over it, man. But Punk comes out. That all being said, right? We got a really fucking good match here. CM Punk, Homicide. They had a match a few months ago that was tremendous. Maybe the best CM Punk match so far. This one was very good too. I don't know if it matched their first match, but the ending stretch of this was really fun. This whole match was just bomb after bomb. Homicide goes for a lariat, but Punk counters into a Pepsi twist, which, if you're not familiar, that's like a hammerlock into a lariat. Homicide hits a pile driver, locks in the STF. Punk gets to the ropes to break it up. Punk fights back, hits a really high and tight cradle suplex for a 2 count. But ultimately, Homicide wins with the cop killer. So Homicide gets a win over CM Punk, which is a pretty fucking big deal because Punk and Raven pretty much monopolized 2003 in the main event. Punk has been a main event fixture, feuding with the Prophecy, which we'll get into in a second. So big win for Homicide. Good match. Really great energy to this match. But kind of jumping to the end of night 2, like in the conclusion, like the ending few minutes of the show, we see Homicide leaving the building, and he says that he's leaving Ring of Honor, or he's like taking a break from Ring of Honor. I don't know if he's like going to Japan or what, or if this is all just like a storyline. But it seems weird coming off a win that he's like, I'm fucking Ring of Honor. He's not fucking Ring of Honor. He's just like, I need to get my mind right or whatever the hell. So we'll see what comes of that. But it was a very interesting way to end it. But that's where Homicide's at. And those were some of the standout matches for me. But let's conclude this bad boy with faction warfare. We got the Saints, the Second City Saints versus the Prophecy. So the main event of night 1, you got CM Punk, Ace Steel, and Colt Cabana taking on the team of Christopher Daniels, Dan Moff, and the newest member of the Prophecy, BJ Whitmer, in a 6-man tag match, which, to say it breaks down would be an understatement. But to kind of just lay the backstory here, Prophecy, Second City Saints, the 2 top factions in the company. And that's just like, Ring of Honor up to this point has not had a lot of good luck with factions. The Prophecy has been something that's been established since the beginning, pretty much since day 1. But it's been kind of fluid. Like Donovan Morgan was a part of it, and then he kind of just quietly left. And Samoa Joe was kind of a part of it, but only as like an assassin. Then he all of a sudden decided he didn't want any part of it and joined his own group. which the fucking Steve Corino group was a disaster in itself. Only lasted like 1 or 2 shows. And the Prophecy, like they had Simply Luscious, but then she joined Steve Corino's group, which again imploded in itself. And then Allison Danger came in. So it's like the Prophecy hasn't felt like a faction up until now. I'll say this, their entrance for their 6-man tag on night 1 was the first time that I felt like the Prophecy felt like a faction. It's even down to like the matching gear. They got the hats and the shirts with the logo on it. They got the hand gestures. And you got guys that just feel like they're a part of the faction. BJ Whitmer, I think, was a good addition to this because you got Daniels, Dan Moff, BJ Whitmer, Allison Danger. And Allison Danger, she had a lot of like promo time on this month. Like up to this point, she's kind of just been a background figure, like an outside interference type figure. But I thought she really was impressive. And because like night 2, Daniels is not there, and we'll get into why. But she kind of took the lead as the leader, and I thought it was pretty solid stuff from her. So Prophecy coming out here looking good. Second City Saints, because the whole dynamic here with the Saints, you got CM Punk, who's CM Punk, right? He hasn't changed that much. Ace Steel and Colt Cabana have kind of been like the goofy idiots in the background. Like they don't really match the intensity of Punk, but they all kind of got on the same page. Like Colt was doing one of his backstage talk show interviews, Good Times, Great Memories is his show. His guest was Ace Steel, and they're kind of just like, oh, well, like they're just being goofy idiots, talking about their mom's duo's bowling league or whatever the hell. I don't know. They had a stupid trophy. It was a whole thing. But Punk comes in and is like, I need your goddamn game faces on, fellas. All right. And they're like, okay. And then they come out all serious. There's no Copacabana on this show. So all of this to say, and by the way, all this feud was kind of established because Lucy, otherwise known as Daphne, Lucy was a part of the Second City Saints, but she got taken out. It was probably like 6 months ago at this point, but nobody knew who took her out. And it was unveiled at Final Battle that it was BJ Whitmer that took Lucy out, and he was doing it on behalf of the Prophecy. BJ now joins the Prophecy. The Saints now have a personal vendetta against them, but the Prophecy want to maintain control of Ring of Honor, but so do the Saints. So it's a big power struggle at the top of the card for these two factions. Pretty simple story. But like I said, Daniels, CM Punk, 2 of the strongest characters going right now. And you got a lot of good talent in here. So it was very good. We got a good scene set here for this feud, even though you got stupid schoolgirl Tracy Brooks. By the way, Ace Steel, which everybody now knows him for the guy that likes to bite thighs, right? Do you know what his nickname was in the Indies? I didn't until this show. Sexy Ace Steel is... I'm not making that up. His nickname is Sexy. Sexy Ace Steel is here. But the match gets underway. Like I said, we got a 6-man tag here to close out night 1. By the way, both factions are wearing black and red, which is just embarrassing. It's very hard to keep track of because they're all wearing like the same colors. You got a little bit of inner Prophecy turmoil too, because BJ and Dan Moff don't completely trust each other. They've had a lot of stiff battles over the past year or two. Dan Moff did not know that it was BJ that attacked Lucy, so Dan Moff swore on his dead dad's grave, as opposed to his alive dad's grave. I don't know. So Dan Moff, BJ, they don't really trust each other, but they kind of build that throughout the month. It was a solid match. I mean, Dan Moff busts his head open on the post. The Saints beat up on Moff for a lot of this match. Each of the Saints do top rope moves. I think Colt does like a splash, and then Punk does a leg drop, and then Ace Steel does an elbow drop. So they're beating up on Moff, but Moff comes back with a big lariat, sending Punk into orbit makes the hot tag to Daniels. Then it all breaks down from there. You got everybody doing dives to the outside. Colt does a sick looking Asai moonsault to the outside. Daniels with an Arabian moonsault to the outside. And everybody just takes turns doing their finishers. Daniels hits a best moonsault ever to Punk for a 2 count, which I don't know if anybody's ever kicked out of that up to this point. So that felt like a big moment. You got a cat fight with Tracy Brooks and Allison Danger. I say cat fight, but they really just get in the ring and start chopping each other. So I guess it's like Ring of Honor's version of a cat fight. Danger hits her with a spear, and BJ gets in there with a chair and accidentally clocks the ref with it as he swings it at Punk. Ref's down. Punk hits the chair up into BJ's face. A second ref comes out and just throws the match out because we've just broken down into chaos. Commentary is fucking Gabe again, man. We got to get out of here. The war's coming to us. They fight all around the arena. They have like a full-on match after the match is over. They're still fighting in the ring. They're still doing spots and double teams and what have you. Lots of people getting thrown into the barricade. Lots of crowd fighting. BJ Whitmer hits Tracy Brooks with a rich clutch suplex. Punk hits a springboard doomsday neckbreaker onto one of the Prophecy guys. Moff gets in there and just chairs everybody. Chairs everywhere. Everybody's using chairs and brawling around the ring. Lucy comes back. Lucy's, I guess, come out of her coma from being punched in the head once, like 6 months ago. Comes back for revenge on BJ. Takes him out. I think hits him with a low blow or something. And then we get a really dramatic Pepsi plunge onto Daniels through a table, and that ends the brawl, I guess. And it's really dramatic. They like everybody leaves. They like cut to a few minutes later when everybody's like leaving the building. The house lights are on, and Daniels is still just like face down in the ring, and the Prophecies all around him like crying. They're getting a stretcher for him, and like Daniels is not on night 2, so this really took him out for a bit. So Saints come out of night 1 looking like beasts, and but Dan Moff has some words for the Saints.
We're gonna come like we've never come before.
So he means business, I guess. So like I said, Daniels is taken out, although he does have a promo on night 2, which is hilarious. Let me find it. So it's like I might even clip some of this just so you can hear what it sounds like. Not the words per se, but it's just the funny like VHS camcorder, like the hum in the background, the clinking of the camera, the zoom in. It's just so 2004, man. It's hilarious.
Baltimore, Maryland. Ring of Honor returns to Baltimore, Maryland. And instead of making my triumphant Baltimore debut, I'm at home, recuperating from a neck injury.
And he's holding his infant daughter, rubbing, she's sleeping. He's holding her, petting her on the back. Daniels is like, Punk, you're going to see a side of me that I don't want my daughter to ever see. Zoom out. It's very dramatic. I kind of liked it though. But that's basically where we're at with that. I'll wrap this up with night 2. We have a number 1 contenders match. It's a 4-corner survival. Matt Stryker versus Xavier versus Dan Moff versus BJ Whitmer. So out of the 4, we got 2 Prophecy guys, right? We got Xavier, who's a former Prophecy member, is now a member of the Embassy, which is starting to get underway here. Nana's not here. He's in Japan scouting, quote unquote. But Xavier's here, and then Matt Stryker, who is always in the picture here at this point. So 4-corner match. It's a fine match. Of course, the Prophecy guys team up to try to take out the other 2 guys. It breaks down as all of these Scramble matches do. Everybody do your moves. Xavier hits his kiss your ex goodbye on the Matt Stryker. Dan Moff hits a brutal looking half and half suplex onto Xavier. Matt Stryker hits a Death Valley driver on the Moff. The Prophecy have a little miscue here where Dan Moff is holding Matt Stryker. BJ goes for a lariat, but Stryker ducks and BJ hits Moff, and they have a little kerfuffle here for a second. But ultimately, Dan Moff hits a brutal looking lariat onto Matt Stryker. And Dan Moff and BJ Whitmer both pin Matt Stryker, and they both get the win. So it's a double pin. There's a lot of confusion and whatnot. What ultimately happens is a three-way is established for the second anniversary show. It's going to be Samoa Joe defending against both BJ Whitmer and Dan Moff. Now, modern day rules would state that even if the champion doesn't lose, he can still lose the title. But the little wrinkle they throw in here, the three-way. So now if BJ or Moff pins Joe, then they win the title. But if Moff or BJ, if either of them pin each other, then that earns them a number one contendership to a future match, a future one-on-one match with Joe. Which I don't know how. First of all, I feel like any like triple threat or four-way should just be elimination. I feel like I hate the concept of losing your title without being pinned. I think that's the stupidest shit that exists today. I don't know how it still exists. Like, is nobody looking at this like, hey, maybe this doesn't make a lot of sense? Every triple threat should be an elimination. Everyone. Every four-way should be an elimination. When you get to like 5 and 6 people, it can get a little cumbersome. I get it. But every three-way should be an elimination match. It just, I don't know. But in this case, they do it a little. I don't hate this stipulation and that you have to pin the champion to win the title. But I don't know. We'll see what comes of that. Spoiler alert, I believe low key ends up getting added to this match. So I'm not sure how that affects the stipulation. But that's where we're at here. And then the night 2 ends with Samoa Joe, because Samoa Joe is cutting his promo on the Briscoes. And as he's, talking about Jay Briscoe, he challenges Jay to a steel cage match. The Prophecy, Dan Moff, BJ Whitmer, they attack him from behind, leave him laying. So the Prophecy, even though they had their kind of miscommunications and their little bit of tension, they appear to be unified coming out of January of 2004. So Joe is in trouble, I suppose, is what we're led to believe here. But so the Prophecy have their toes a little bit in the world title scene, but also still feuding with the Saints. So hopefully the faction warfare is a little better than the Prophecy versus Steve Corino's group, because that was fucking Michael Shane and C.W. Anderson. Like, who gives a shit? But I think that's about all Daddy has for you today. I feel like I rambled a lot. Did I? I don't know. But all in all, it was a solid month. I wouldn't say they came out guns blazing. I feel like this was a lot of seeds being planted, a lot of new concepts being established. But ultimately, I think it all pays off eventually. Or does it? You'll have to tune in and find out. But that's Ring of Honor, January 2004. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm excited to get into Ring of Honor in 2004. It's just, everybody always says like 04, 05 are just the bee's knees with Ring of Honor. And 2002, 2003 were definitely, you can see the growing pains. You can see the growing pains, but you can also see things improving slowly over time. So I'm enjoying it. Hopefully you are too. That's about all Daddy has for you today. Like the video, subscribe, rate the podcast, rate the episode. Is that a thing? Probably not. I don't know. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Love you all. Big ol' smooches for all of you. Hey, guess what? I'm hard.
Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I guess. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing